Okay. Good afternoon, students. So, welcome to the 13th lecture of Information Security, and this is the last section of our third unit, that is the Information Security Control. So, today we'll discuss this what are different types of control. We'll revise some of the concepts that we covered in the previous lecture, and then we'll see what are the application controls, what are the general controls, what are their subdivisions, then some of the technologies which are part of this security control. So what actually this concept is related to how we can what you can say configure the security of obviously this information security and all the aspects which are concerned with this configuration. So mainly here, the part of this today's discussion topic, we are going to discuss the application controls, security controls, and some of the technologies. So yes, my friends, let us proceed. You can mark your attendance by putting your name in the comment, and in case you have any doubt, you can always put that doubt on the comment box, or you can personally message me. Okay, again. So this is one of the important topic as far as the university exams are considered, as well as our internal assessment and the assignment that will be there in the coming time. So let us start. So I just discuss the objective that what we are going to cover for the detail. Let us start with the security control. Before going to that, this is just the small, you can say, recap. So we have seen this thing when we are having this information systems and the principles of security of the information systems we have seen. So it was secrecy, that is confidentiality, then integrity and availability. Beyond that, when we have a trust service framework, we want to actually share the information, and various parties are involved. There is a mutual trust between them, and when we transact, when we communicate, when we share the information, when we share the data, so these are some key aspects of that which we have to provide in the security to access the system, and data is restricted to the legitimate users only. Confidentiality, the data should be accessible to the desired users. Privacy, so certain uh, user data, if the setting allow that this data is not to be shared with particular users, or if it is not a public data, then it should be kept private only. It should not be allowed to access to any of the stakeholder or any entity. Then processing the integrity of whatever data or communication which is there, it should not be altered, or it should not be denied by any of the stakeholders. And availability, where the resources, the compute resources or the storage resources, data resources, and your services should be available for the use by the whatever intended users which are which are existing as a part of your overall trust service framework. So let us move ahead. So yes, we are now discussing the information security, and here you can see the security life cycle, which has got four stages. Okay. So this security life cycle has four stages. First stage is access the assess the threat and select risk response. So risk assessment is the first step. So we have to go through various what you can say systems, subsystems, endpoints where user communicate, and we have to find out whether proper control is exist or not. Otherwise, we have to develop the control there. Second thing is that develop and communicate the policy in case, even if the what you can say this vulnerability and threats are not there, as we have seen in the discussed in the previous lecture. Maybe at the initial deployment, what you can say instance, you may not have any vulnerability present, but maybe because of certain use cases or some of the updates or patch or instantaneous development, there might be development of certain vulnerability. So you cannot say that there will not be any vulnerability in my systems. Yes, it will be there definitely. If it is not there, you are doing very best work. But you have to frame the situation Preempt means you have to envisage the situation and act accordingly. So yes, we will always have to develop the policy that we are going to see how we are going to enforce the security control, and then you have to communicate. Policy means the way you are disseminating certain resources, the way you are controlling the access to particular users, the way you have to change the access. A number of things are there whenever access control or security control is involved. So that public policy has to be made available. It should be disseminated properly to all the stakeholders. It should be made available. Training has to be provided, and it has to be continuously then implemented, monitored. So that these are the next step: acquire and implement solutions. So if there are certain, you can say that not loopholes, but if you say that for certain, for example, if you want to secure the network, you have to configure the firewall, maybe software firewall, maybe hardware firewall, or both. So in that case, you will have to procure the solutions. Okay, in your what you can say web server, you will have to configure the security these firewalls. Or in case of you are having your private premises, then you should have a gateway, and then hardware firewall should be implemented. So it will give an additional layer of security for all the network communication, and then you will have to continuously monitor the state of your system. You have to continuously keep on monitoring the what are various software, what are various hardware there, then security updates are available or not, what is how many visitors, how many intruders, and how what you can say if any vulnerabilities are there, if they should be patched on time. So all number of things are there, and always so this monitoring stage will always have assessment part included. We will have to again assess at periodic level what is the security status, and this cycle will continue. So for overall these cycles, the security controls play very important role. So controlling the information security. Okay, the information system, and obviously we are dealing with the controlling is a system control, the security control. So controlling information system security, that is. So what are the various instances or situations where this information system security is at stake? So we have discussed this thing at length in the previous session. This is just a brief summary where hardware failures, what you can say, or hardware security lapses can cause the security threat to your information system. The software failures, upgrade issues, patching. I said that both. What you can say, if you are introducing new hardware, then it should be accordingly. Drivers and its security package should be updated. The natural disaster, God of hand, they are also possible. Floods, tsunamis, or earthquakes. They may open some of the what you can say loopholes in your security, and people with malicious intent. So maybe hackers, crackers, activists, vandalism. A number of people are there who have malicious intent, and they can what you can say they are possible threat agents and uh, imminent risk for your system. So let us go ahead. So yes, so whenever we have to control the security of information system, what we do actually to minimize the likelihood of the threats, we must control the environment in which the IS, that is information systems, are developed and deployed. So environment contains both the software environment as well as hardware environment, as well as the people who are dealing with the system. So all these three aspects, they have to be controlled, and this information security control has this control of hardware, control of software, and control of you can say people for overall sustainable operation of the system. And these controls, they can be manually put in place, or they can be automatically put in place. Okay, so manually control the environment. So you have to maybe keep on monitoring the log. This is the access log of your this firewall. What are the attack vectors, or maybe for DDoS attack or kind of thing. What types of what you can say. And for this, there are softwares which will keep on monitoring the type of packets which are coming. Then manually check what you can say the fence or premises or CCTV control. So a number of things are coming manually. Automatic firewalls are there. Then there are protocols which will be controlling the overall security of your information systems. So yes, these information security controls, they are implemented through various policies, various procedures, then standards. Standard in the sense that there are some ISO standards are there, ISO systems which actually uh, they define standard for your business processes. So for security, there are designated standards are there. So we can say that we are having ISO 9001 uh, standard at our workplace or business place. So obviously, when you say ISO 9001:15, it has its own security standards defined, kind of thing. Or beyond that, you can have maybe this, because these ISO standards are, they are generalized standards for, let's say, certain group of organizations or common accepted standards. So beyond that also you can implement a standard, or you can have multiple standards so that they will have policies for better security controls. And obviously based on the standards and policies you will have for procedures there. So as we can see that yesterday, in the last lecture we discussed, for a banking account there are always password policies are there, and to set a password we have to go through specific procedure. For example, if you are setting login password, it will ask you whether you want to change the transaction password. Every 6 months it will enforce this is a policy also, and when you change the password it will send you one OTP code, maybe then it will authorize that this is the legitimate person, and then it will allow the password. In case of password failure is there, then there are certain procedures and policies. It will ask you security question and all the things. So these things are followed unanimously for security control. Policies, procedures, and standards. Remember this thing, my friends, my students. Okay, and then whenever we say that controls, the control must be thought of, or they should be implemented for all the stages of information system. Maybe it's your software development or software information, software deployment, design stages. So there are analysis initial, software when we want to design, analysis part, then software coding, construction part, when you deploy the software on premises and the software is running on your system, and throughout the maintenance. So it should have always the security controls as one of the critical aspects while we perform any of this operation on a information systems. For example, even if you are securing everything, but when you are actually maintaining, you are not taking care that the people who are having the maintenance access, they are having proper knowledge of your security policy. And if they do some, what you can say, incorrect configuration, then your resources may be accessed by unwanted users. So yes, throughout the stages, security becomes the critical aspect of your operation throughout this software lifecycle or software design stage. Okay, so what sort of control can be put? So this is other one. What type? So as far as your scope is concerned or scope is concerned, we are having general control and application control that is going to be discussed in detail. So when we say that I want to, what you can say, even control or provide information security and then further control that security. So these two type of control will be there in front of me. So control for design, security, and use of the IS throughout the organization. So these are the general controls. So this we are going to say, and whatever software that I am using. So for that software, maybe suppose if you are a bank, then bank mobile application, bank's website interface, and banks this management software. So all this software will have their own security control in place for control procedures. So they will come into the application control one. And then I will say that bank building premises, then data center, then whatever the users and how they are going to operate this software, and they will come into my premises. All these things they will come into the organization and its control. So yes, both for the bank, general control, application control, both have to be equally uh, monitored. Yeah, monitored with equal sensitivity, and they have to be properly controlled. Okay. So let us see what are the general controls. So these are general controls have again two sub, what you can say, types, which come in the implementation control, where audit system development. So always whenever you will when you will become professional, so always audit is there. It is not that just this is a part of monitoring that we have seen in the previous stage, that the information system in the core stage assess, then communicate the policy, then deploy the policy, and monitor the policy. And this cycle will go on. So this audit system has to be there. Whenever you are having, for example, data centers have audit, your banks procedures for documentation, for development, everywhere will have security audit. And there are different types of audit, maybe the documentation audit, security audit, and number of things are there. So audit system has to be developed. So either you can have your own audit system, or you can have some standards, international standards or national standards. For example, now we have this ISO standard. So this, they also have their own audit, internal audit, surveillance audit. So these audits are always there, so that on periodic basis you are keeping tab on your information systems. Okay, then ensure this what you can ensure systems are properly managed and controlled. The monitoring, ensure user involvement. The way users are going to be trained, they are going to be using the policies, they are going to be understanding the protocol and implementing them. So that thing will come into the implementation. Then ensure procedures and standards which are in use, so that they are providing me with the proper security standards and information security. Then software control, where authorize access to the system. So maybe it will come through the guarding the, what you can say, your server room or your desktop, that only authorized people can access. So in many of the organizations, the pen drives or USB drives are not allowed. They can share, and the system, personal systems are not allowed. Only the systems which are provided by the organizations, they have to be used. And these systems have their own security. Even if the system is stolen, no common person can easily get hold to the data or get hold to the access of your organization's systems. So they will come under the authorized access to the system in both hardware as well as software part. Then in the hardware control, we have this physically secure the hardware. So it includes your maybe the security personnel, then biometric security, then CCTVs, all these things are there. In monitoring this hardware faults and fix any kind of malfunctions. For example, we have seen yesterday the air conditioner is, this system is old and maybe it might be malfunctioning. Air conditioner is not a software system or maybe not directly hardware, but if your air conditioning system is malfunctioning, it will cause your server to burn out or maybe malfunction, and then it will cause the disruption in service and loss of revenue. So it is not only your computer systems have to be monitored, all premises have to be monitored properly for proper risk assessment. Then environmental system and protection, maybe the inlet, air conditioning, air circulation, then ventilation system, then water supply, coolant supply, cooling systems, and number of things are there which are, then electricity, and even how the electricity is deployed. Then maybe the air control. It is not air conditioning, but the way this air inlet and outlet is there, that we have to control. Then backup of disk-based data, this hardware is. So if these, they are coming under the DR, disaster recovery management. But yes, in case your data is stolen or compromised, then you should always have the latest backup of your system. So general control, hardware control we have seen. Then next, computer operations control. The way these are the coming under the procedures. Here you can see the procedures which are there, which uh, which lay down the guidelines how we use the system, how we set the system, how we work, what software we work, what browser we work, how we have to take backup. For example, banks and other things, they have daily backup. They have maybe for critical transaction processing system, we are having hourly backup. Then whenever the transactions or the servers are there, there are always load balance. So all this, they are computer operations control. Then data security control, how the data is accessed by what people, access right, access control list we have seen that comes here. Then physical access to the terminal, passwords. So here you have this password, and nowadays there is something called as USB tokens are also there, or keys are there. Along with passwords, we'll use this thing so that you are having, even if someone knows the password, the person, unless and until possesses the, what you can say, hardware key, the person will not get access. So yes, this can add additional security to physical access to the terminal. So it will be difficult for a person to get physical access of the machine and operate that machine. And data level access control, what kind of data to be accessed by what personality, access to specific tables of your database, it comes under the data security controls. Now the administrative controls, this is also part of the general controls. We have seen what are the different part: implementation control, hardware control, computer operation control, data security controls, and administrative control. The organizational policies, admins, they control if certain for example, in your, if you have this Amazon AWS account, so it will have one root account, admin account, and then in this root account you can create various users and distribute their username and password under this their IAM service, identity authentication and management service. So once the this admin will have all right to implement the policy, and this is an example of the administrative control. So segregating functions, reduce errors and fraud, supervision of personnel to ensure policies and procedure whether they are following or not. If they are not following the procedure, their access should not be given. So one very good example of this thing is Amazon AWS IAM service, identity access and management service, which does the job of the implementing administrative control. Then we are having the input control, where the data is how you give the data to the system, and they come under the application control. And one consequence for this thing can be the not consequence, an example: if the data is not properly controlled, there is the SQL injection attack. If you are not properly what you can say monitoring and validating the query, this may result into the SQL injection attack in case of the SQL server. Nowadays there are many security controls which prohibit and avoid the SQL injection. But this is the situation where application controls are very important. Here, input control. Nowadays, we are having the validation control. We validate the email ID, we validate the telephone number, and a number of things, so that it will give proper data to your application. And data conversion, just I discussed the validation. So, and then this validation will allow or enable us to catch the error at the beginning only. Then we are having the processing control, when the data is processed for the accurate and complete, what you can say, passing on the data to the further level, where we are having to, what you can say, various records and fields which will be validated, and before the data is marked for further processing, it has to be, what you can say, corrected, so that incorrect data will not result. It is not always that virus or proper access. Suppose in case, what you can say, various applications are sharing the data, if it is not properly processed, then it will generate the erroneous result and maybe the service outage. So that's why application control processing is also important. Then the output control, where the output which is given through the various, what you can say, your software systems is controlled, because one software system may give output to the other software system, and this has to be also controlled, because if to do software system, the output is even the way your data is displayed. So you may have some sensitive data and sensitive output, but everything need not to be displayed on the screen, and so we have to control the output also. Then who is going to access the data, what, for example, if your, suppose some user is accessing your server or your website or some resources, there is always a recipient of who has logged or who has accessed your system. That has to be properly monitored. Otherwise, some person, you are in India and your intended users are in India, but they are some, you are having some users which are maybe from South Africa or US or maybe China or Japan. which are unintended user. Maybe some hackers will be doing this thing. So all these things has to be checked. Track recipient, check whether what kind of data is displayed and given out that is distributed also, that has to be controlled. That comes under the application control. And this is the last part to enforce the thing, what how we can process overall the operation. So here we are again this information systems like TPS, they require high degree of availability. So we should have proper DR mechanism, load balancing mechanism on place in order to control the system. So this high availability has to mention that here this high availability is implemented through what you can say load balancing, clustering, mirroring, DR plans, then various security audits, various what you can say the security audit in the sense that software security and loopholes we have to, so that it will not allow any unauthorized access and crashing of the systems also. So this has to be also monitored. High availability computing is one of the what you can say methodology which will allow us to implement the security controls through the software support and hardware support and for continuous operation. Then fault tolerance, some of the uh, uh, load balancing and what you can say mirroring, these are the fault tolerance systems where if one system crashes, then automatically it will switch to the other system. So fault tolerance systems are there. Then high availability, fault tolerance, network and even premises security. So implement firewalls, then encryption mechanisms, digital signature and mechanisms for accessing. For example, banks always have this HTTP, secure HTTP, and use of that proper encryption mechanism for increasing the network security. And finally, overall, these processes will be there for developing and deployment of control. So there are lots of threats to our information systems. We have to control this information system through general controls, application controls. We have to put HA, that is high availability systems, fault tolerance system, network security, in order to maintain this information security control, implement that thing, monitor that thing, and continuously we have to assess the risk in order to strengthen the security of the system. So here we complete here we complete this information security control discussion of our this security aspect, and this completes the chapter 3, unit 3 of MIS. So I will stop here today because in the next any of the unit is completed. In the next unit, next lecture, maybe I will give you one case study, not case study, assignment. Already I have given you one case study, so you will have to submit that case study. You can discuss with me maybe on personal email or chat or on call regarding what case study you are selecting and what may be the various aspects. Already we have discussed this thing, but we can continue with that discussion, and we have to present. So you will have to submit the type the written case study there as a part of your term work submission, as well as one assignment, online assignment we'll see, and then for writing some question also I will give. So I thank all the students for attending this lecture. Then for your time also, because today there is a festival, Janmashtami festival is there. Still you are here attending. So I wish you a very auspicious Janmashtami. Celebrate safely with your family and friends. Stay home, stay safe. If you have any doubt, you can put in the comment box. I will monitor that thing for a while. Otherwise, we'll conclude the lecture. So, thank you all. Thank you, my students, for attending. We'll meet in the next lecture on Friday. Okay, bye.